Hey, this is Mr. Medic. I'm going to be explaining section 12.3a, the first part of it. So you're going to want to grab your notebook and turn to page 557. I'm going to start at page 557 and do a bunch of notes, and then I'm going to give you some sample problems like the ones that are right in the book. So here we got 12.3, modeling with linear systems. Today we're going to work on how you can use a system of linear equations or inequalities to model and solve real problems. That's what contextual problems means. So the first problem they give us talks about Joe going to the store to buy jeans and some t-shirts. Now I'm going to look to the end of the question because that's going to tell us something about what the variables stand for. It says at the end, how many pairs of jeans and how many t-shirts did he buy? So how many pairs of jeans is going to be our x variable. So write an expression to represent the amount that Joe spent on x pair of jeans. Well, for each pair of jeans, it costs him 40 bucks. So for x pairs of jeans, it would be x times 40, or 40x. And likewise, for t-shirts cost 20 bucks each, and our variable of y is going to stand for how many t-shirts he has. So to find out how much it costs for all the t-shirts, we would take 20 and multiply it times y. And that gives us a significant part of our the equation we need to represent this. So now we're going to put the amount spent on the jeans, which was 40x, plus the amount spent on the t-shirts, which is 20y, and it tells us the total amount spent. And the total amount spent, according to the question, is 160 bucks. So we're going to write down that it equals 160 right there. Which variable represents the number of jeans purchased? That would be x. And which variable represents the number of t-shirts purchased? That's y. So write an equation to represent the total number of items purchased. Items are jeans and t-shirts, so it's x plus y. So our new equation for that would be x plus y equals, and it says he purchased 5 items. So we're going to put x plus y equals 5. Now I've told you about these equations in the past, that one equation stands for how much it's costing or how much it's worth or what its value is, and the other equation has to do with how many items there are, or in other words the count. So for the value of it, we're going to get 40x plus 20y equals 160, and for the count, it's x plus y equals 5. So we're going to skip now to the next page. We could solve that system, by the way, and we've got several different methods. I like the elimination method. Some people may prefer the substitution method. But now we're on to the next page. So that was page 557. We're looking at page 558 now. Explain 1. Write a system of equations to represent the situation and then solve the system. That's what's new here, so we're going to solve it at the end. Now actually we're not going to do any of it. The book does the whole thing. But at the end we've got this, how many of each did he buy? And the each is cups of coffee and cups of hot chocolate. So we're going to use for our variables C, which stands for the number of cups of coffee, and H, which stands for the number of cups of hot chocolate. And so the count question is going to be C plus H equals 8. Now since each cup of coffee costs $2.25, then 225C tells me the total cost of the cups of coffee. And likewise, each cup of hot chocolate costs $1.50, so $1.50 times H, $1.50 times the number of cups of hot chocolate he has, that's gonna tell us what the total cost for the hot chocolate is. So together, these two, if we add those two together, it should be $15.75. We can use those two equations then to solve the system. So there's our value and there's our count. Now they're going to take and multiply this equation by negative 2.25. The process of doing that, since these are all really simple to multiply, ends up getting us negative 2.25c minus 2.25h equals, and this should say negative 18. There's a mistake right there in the book. Negative 18. Now they got that negative 18 right when they got down here. And now by adding those equations, what happens to the c's? Oh yeah, that's the elimination method, isn't it? Because it's eliminated. And then 150 minus 225 is negative 0.75. And there are h's. And if I take 18 and subtract it from 15.75, I get negative 2.25. One last step, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 0.75. And a negative divided by a negative gives me a positive. And the answer is, for the number of cups of hot chocolate, we get 3. And they told us that altogether there were 8, so I can do that in my head. The number of cups of coffee would have to be 5, because 3 plus 5 is 8. Now, additionally, we could go ahead and plug those back into our original equation for the value, and it should come out to be 1575. So whenever you do a problem like this, you should always be able to tell whether you're right or not. Okay? Now we've got a real problem that we have to do ourselves. This is on page 559. It's the first problem we actually have to do ourselves. So we're buying two kinds of things. We're buying pens and markers, and the pens cost $275 each. The markers, on the other hand, they cost $325 each. Markers cost $325. They bought a total of 6 packages. So that means that's our count. So P plus M is going to equal 6. Now that's a really horrible writing. Let's see if I can figure out how to erase that. Yeah, I erased that. That's better. Let's go with the red. So it's P plus M is going to equal 6, which is what we've got down here. And then the other is the value, and the value is going to be 2.75 times P, and C 325 times M, and added together those would have to equal the 1750. So 2.75 P plus 3.25 M equals 1750. Now obviously this bottom equation is really easy to multiply, and they want us to get opposite coefficients for P. And that's a good idea in this case because it's a smaller number, so we're not going to end up with any negatives. So we're going to multiply the second equation, that P plus M equals 6, by negative 2.75. That's a negative 2.75. That's a really horrible negative. Let's try that again. Negative 2.75. So that's going to get us negative 2.75p plus negative 2.75m is equal to, I wonder what 6 times negative 2.75 is. So 2.75 times 6 is 16.5. So negative 16.5 is going to go there. And so now we're going to take that first equation that we got, which is 2.75p plus 3.25m equals 1750, and we're going to subtract 2.75p negative 2.75m and negative 16.5. Well, I can subtract that easy. That's $1. And then I think we're going to end up, that eliminates, and we've got 3 1/4 minus 2 3/4, which is going to give us 50 cents. So it's 0.5 M is equal to $1. Now I'm going to do the math over here. 0.5, you could say it's 0.50, but it doesn't really matter since that's the same thing as 0.5. is equal to 1.0. So we're going to divide both sides by 0.5, or you could say I'm multiplying by 2, because that accomplishes the same purpose, and that gives us that m is 2. So if m is 2, and p plus m, if you remember back up there, is equal to 6, then that means that that p must be 4. So she bought 4 packs of pens, she or he, I don't remember whether Bobby would be a boy or a girl. Does it say? I don't think it does. And 2 packs of markers. And that could also be checked again if I plug back into here 2.75 times 4 and 3.25 times 2. I think we'd end up getting exactly $17.50. Okay, now I'm going to show you a couple of the questions from each of the sections so that you can really get a good idea what's going on here. Please note that on this page, which is page 562, the instructions say right here, do not solve. So all we have to do is write the system of equations. We're just going to write 2 equations. So the question says Lisa spends part of her year as a member of a gym. And let's jump to the end and see what the question is. She ends up spending a total of $775, but what is the system asking us? I think it's asking us how many months we're at the second gym and how many months we're at the first gym. So we're going to use X and Y just to represent the number of months at the first gym and Y is going to be the number of months at the second gym. Now we've got to count here in a value. So the count in this case is the number of months, and I think it says for a whole year. How many months are there in a year? Well, there's 12. So together it's going to be X plus Y is equal to 12. Now that's the simple one. It's actually really simple. The second one is the question of how much it costs or how much its value is. The first gym membership costs $75. So we're going to take that X and multiply it times 75 to see times the number of months we're at the first gym. Plus, we got a cheaper one for the second gym. That's why she switched. 50 times Y. Now that cost her a total of $775. And that's our 2 equations, so that's it. We're done. Okay, it's pretty easy. There is one tricky question in this set. I don't really like the way it's written, and that's why I'm kind of showing you this. And this is going to help you when you get to the question that's like this one. There's one just like it in the second section. So pay attention to this. These are actually really simple. It says there are 200 adults and 300 children at a zoo. That's kind of weird. I don't think adults and children would be on display at the zoo, but nonetheless, there it is. The zoo makes a total of $7,000 from entrance fees. That's a value statement, isn't it? So we don't need to know how many adults there are or how many children there are, but we do want to know what the cost for an adult and a child are. Those are 2 different things. So let's call, for the sake of argument, we're going to call X is equal to cost of an adult ticket, and Y is going to be the cost of a child's ticket. We know from this statement right here that the cost of an adult's ticket plus the cost of a child's ticket is $30. Now that's not really a count, but it is a count of the cost. That's why I don't really like this question, and there's one like it in the other section, but it's not that difficult now that I've shown you that. We have to figure out the total value, though. We know that it's going to be equal to $7,000. So if there are 200 adults and it costs X for each adult, then it's going to be 200X plus 300Y equals 7,000. So that's how you do those, and you only have a few to do on your own, and they don't take long. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next section, which starts off with find a system of equations that corresponds to the situation and then solve the resulting system. So Jan spends part of her year as a member of a gym. That sounds a lot like the first question, She then finds a better deal at another gym, so she cancels her membership from the first gym and spends the rest of the year at the second gym, and the cost is per month. So guess what? We've got the same count situation going on as the first question. It's x plus y equals 12. But now we've got different costs for the first gym and the second gym than on that other question. So that's our second equation. It's going to be 80x plus 45y equals, the total cost was 645. Now I'm going to solve this by elimination. So I'm going to match these guys up. I'm going to try to match up the y's this time. I'm going to make those y's match, which means I'm going to multiply this first equation by 45, which that's going to get me, and I'm going to write it down here. You'll see why in a minute. 45x plus 45y equals, now I got to do my math here, hang on. Okay, I just multiplied 45 times 12 and got 540. So we got 540 here. And now I'm going to write this one above it, which is 80x plus 45y equals 645. And now it's really easy to subtract these. So I'm going to subtract 45x and 45y and 540. See, I think that's 35x. Yep, that's what it is. Equals. And it looks like we get 105. So now I'm going to divide both sides by 35. So 105 divided by 35 is 3. So that's what we wanted. So she only spends 3 months at the first one, which if that's going to add up to 12, that means that y has to be the rest of it, so y is 9. So she spends 3 months at the first gym, and 9 months at the second. Now I'm going to do one more question that's like this. Okay, there's one other question that can be a little confusing, and this is number 13. The main thing here is deciding what the value is, the value of her coins. The count is too easy. You guys can figure that out. I would use the variables n and d. N stands for the number of nickels, and d stands for the number of dimes. So the value of her coins is going to be, now if I say cents, I've got to change $1.20 into cents. That's 120 cents. I like it better that way. So I'm going to write 5n plus 10d equals 120. Now if you wanted to write it as dollars, like this is written, you'd have to write 0.05n plus 0.10d equals $1.20. I don't like that because it introduces decimals and you don't really need them. But anyway, that should help you do number 13. Let's do one more like that, number 14. You have to read the question carefully. It says the sum of 4 times one number, let's call one number x, and 3 times a second number, let's call that one y, is 64. It says the sum of the two numbers is 19. Okay, that's easy. That's x plus y equals 19. Now on this one, we've got to think out what that's saying right there. Well, the good news is, because it says is 64, we know that's equals 64. the sum of, so we're adding something, 4 times one number, that's 4x, plus 3 times the second number. Okay, now I've got the two equations written down for you. You just have to solve the system. I would recommend that you take that and multiply it by 3 and subtract the two equations, and you'll already be there.